it is possible that they can participate with supervision and be a part of that process. They may not be able to do it in the fullest sense, but if we can get 75% out of them, then that's good. You know, we can't expect necessarily 100%, but at least we have certain standards that we set, which they are required to function within, and that's as good as we can do now, with the intention to bring more and more Muslim teachers into our schools. Because, I mean, we said already that was a failure on the part of the community. You know, this was a fard kifaya requirement of the community to provide Islamic education for the children, Islamized education as taught by Muslim teachers. That is the right of the children of our community. If we don't provide that for them, we are in sin. The whole community is in sin. So that's what we have to work on. We have to develop, correct, improve, and in working together, we can do it. Because Allah has not put any burden which is too great for us to handle. La yukallifu Allahu nafsan illa wus'aha. This is reality. We can do it. It's just the will, the means. Inshallah, with Allah's blessing, it can happen. Go ahead, please.
I don't know if I'm putting the carriage before the horse about this, but it's just about the Eids that we have. But it is known, of course, in Islam that we're supposed to have only 2 Eids, but we have, you know, celebrations like Independence Day celebrations, you know, and I'm just wondering, is there a good way of integrating these celebrations that we have so that we promote patriotism, or do we just leave them since we're adding another Eid, or what is the best approach to it?
The law of the country. If the law of the country allows you to not celebrate it, then it's better not to celebrate it. If you are required by law to celebrate it, then you try to keep it on a low level, and also you try to bring out whatever positive elements that you can from it. You know, let it be some moral messages and lessons there. We don't want to promote Nigerian nationalism, because we know this was something hated by the Prophet ﷺ, and he spoke against it. Man da'a ila al-asabiyya falaysa minna. Whoever calls to tribalism, nationalism is not of us, you know. So we know that it has to be from another perspective. So that's what I would suggest, and it will vary according to the needs and the necessities of the circumstance. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I think more effort should be put into this Islamization of knowledge and education as well. Because in Nigeria there, we have seen even the consequences, as we have some sects coming up with the idea that even the knowledge is like what the secular system we're operating is prohibited, that this is haram, and in fact it costs the nation, the society, huge amounts of money and even pains. So I think if this concept has been there, it seems it wouldn't have been like this, as somebody will not look the education system as if it's not even part of Islam, and as for him, he won't even join the system. I think again that's something I would like to listen. In our society we see, in most cases, we see we the Muslims taking our children to the Christian schools. But you hardly see a Christian child in our own school. So all this issue, I think by time more effort and more preparation are made, I think there could be some kind of solution that will come out of it.
Inshallah, schools, putting them in just in prison schools, and not vice versa. If our Muslim schools were the best in the country, the top graduates came from our schools, believe me, they would be lining up at our doors. But because our standard is so low, it's so low that even our own fellow Muslims don't want to put their children in our schools. Then who are we to blame but ourselves? This is the bottom line. We have to raise the standard because excellence is, a part of the deen. The Prophet ﷺ had said, "Inna Allah yuhibbu min ahadikum idha amila amalan an yutqina." Allah loves from each and every one of you if whenever you do anything, you do it to the best of your ability. So the best, itqan, perfection, this is from the deen, it's part of the faith. But we have neglected it and we are now settling for anything, second best, etc. But as I said, still, in the end, the greatest prize that we give the students should be for moral behavior. When a student does something outstanding in your school, you make an example of that student. Look what they did and give them a prize. You send messages. This is how subliminal messages are sent. Because as long as your main prize is for tops in academics, then that's your message. Get those top marks by any means necessary. And for students, cheating is the quickest and easiest way. But when the biggest prize is for moral excellence, then you're sending a very powerful message to them. Give a prize for academics too, but let it be second. Not the big one. So, inshallah, I think we're going to take our break here now for lunch and be back. You want to inform them? Right.
Pray for the male participants for prayer, and then food is served in the dining area for everybody. Okay. And then the female as well, there's another room that is prepared for you for prayer. The toilets are downstairs for male and female separate. Okay. Assalamu alaikum. See you back in an hour, inshallah.
العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. All praise is due to Allah, and may Allah's peace and blessings be on the last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and on all those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. In our previous session, workshop, we looked at the concept of knowledge from the Islamic perspective, the misconception that Islamic studies would be separate from secular studies. We said that the roots of that are from Christian thought, and the Islamic approach is a fully integrated approach. We also spoke about concepts of knowledge, true and false, revealed and acquired, useful and useless. With regards to revealed knowledge, we said that useless knowledge, or the term useless knowledge in relationship to revealed knowledge, this meant what?
Age appropriateness.
Huh?
Age appropriate.
Age appropriate or circumstance appropriate, means it's relatively useless. It's not useless in and of itself, but it's relatively useless. Even the acquired knowledge, when we say it's useless, it doesn't mean there is no benefit from it. Because even knowledge of the composition of dirt on Mars is useful knowledge at the time when we are planning to go there. So it's, it is useful knowledge at a particular time, but at this time it is useless. Meaning that there are other areas of knowledge which are more beneficial, which should take precedence over that. Because when we're seeking knowledge, it should be prioritized. Then we talked about the basic concept of education being cultural transfer. This is the core of it. So either you put those facts and figures in an Islamic package, or it comes in a Western secular package. Western package with its culture. The images, especially in the early years, where much of what is taught with stories and pictures, etc., then so much of their culture is passed on. So we said one of the main challenges that we're faced with is bringing morality back into the classroom. Now, we have been talking about Islamization of education. There's another concept called Islamization of knowledge. That Islamization of knowledge actually is a philosophical study. It deals with the theory of knowledge, and it's very complex. And it involves, practically speaking, reinvention of the wheel. If we distrust the West so much that anything that they have, we need to replace it with something we have, then that is the approach you're going to take. But the approach that I have taken, which I feel is practical, is we build on what others have done. You reach a certain point, we take the best of what they have and we build on it. We just don't take it all without any kind of sifting or assessment or picking and choosing what is in fact beneficial. So Islamization of education instead is a relatively simple process, and that's what we will be focusing on. Now, part of the Islamization process, or I could say the Islamization process is actually not complete until we actually replace existing books with our own Islamized books. This is really ultimately where we need to be, as long as it is permitted by the country that we're in. Some countries insist on standard books being taught in all schools. Some countries insist on it. You have no choice. The government has set a curriculum, everybody has to follow that curriculum. I ran into that in India, where the government curriculums for those who are taking the government examinations were standard books. Everybody had to use it. So the material in it was influenced by Hindu culture. Stories, their fables, and all this is a part of their literature. It comes up in their, in their explanations for maths and everything. When you give word problems, all of this stuff comes up. So it's a challenge. You can't replace the books. And this is where the lesson plan becomes your best channel or your best source for Islamization. But where you can, there are countries which allow you. Where you can develop your own books, then it's worth developing another set of books, teaching the same material, but teaching it from an Islamic perspective. So you're not just doing it in the classroom as a teacher, you are presenting that material in an Islamic way. Even the textbooks which the children, young people will have in their hands, these are themselves Islamized. You know, this is ultimately where we would like to be. If it's at all possible, then we should do it. And this process is also critical for standardization. Because if it's left only up to the teacher, teachers have different capacities, different levels of motivation and all this. So one teacher might do quite a lot towards Islamization of the curriculum that's being taught. Another might do little. When you're a teacher who is doing a lot, has to go and is replaced by somebody else who doesn't have the same motivation, then the quality of the class drops. So you don't have a steady, you could say a steady approach to Islamization of education. It's up and down, up and down. So if you want, the way to do it is to standardize it, to establish some basic standards that whatever teacher comes, they have something to work with. Your ultimate tool is the textbook itself. If you have a textbook which has got everything, you're giving science, it's already been Islamized, everything is prepared, that makes life a lot easier. The teacher makes a lesson plan from a text that is already Islamized, that is the ultimate. But where you can't do the text, then you just work with the lesson plan. Now, if you are able to do both the lesson plan and the text, then I suggest that obviously the process by which you set up your lesson plan should be itself structured. If we go from school to school here, I'm sure if we take out each lesson plan, you'll see people have different lesson plans. There are no standardized lesson plans. So we need to establish something standardized. Standardized from the way in which the lesson plan is divided up, set up, etc., as well as standardized in terms of its content. Now, this can only be done if we establish principles for lesson plan Islamization itself, that process. If we say the most critical point in the Islamization of curriculum, Islamization of education, is at the point of lesson plan Islamization. Since that is what guides the teacher in delivering his or her subject. That's your guide. So if that guide has been systematically Islamized, then the lesson that you're delivering will likewise be systematically Islamized. And if it is standardized and you're not here that day, another teacher steps in, they have the stuff to work, they can carry on. May not be quite at the same level you were because you've been teaching it all along, but they can be close. If they're trained teachers, they have a good lesson plan, they can handle it. So in that way, we are systematically Islamizing the curriculum and Islamizing the school. Now, if we Islamize the curriculum, mathematics grade 1, you have 2 or 3 classes, different teachers, Islamize, according to principles, their curriculum. You have other schools, say the network of schools here, who agree to do likewise. Then, at the end of the coming year, all of the grade 1 mathematics teachers meet and they share their lesson plans. And from those lesson plans, they create a master lesson plan, which has the best that everybody had come up with for each lesson, all the way through the whole year. Now you have something solid. This is what I'm proposing. This is why I insisted from the very beginning that this workshop be for all the schools. Not just one school, but for all the schools. Because this project, ultimately, to be of maximum benefit, needs to be shared by a number of schools. So, if that master lesson plan is created after 1 year of operation, you're near the end of the school year now, right? So what we're talking about is next year. Next year, this time, at the end of the school year, you meet. Because if you call this now, nobody has been working systematically in the Islamization, so it's going to be all kinds of things from everywhere and everywhere. So if we have a plan, in other words, we look for next year, this time, end of the year, we have a structure for the standardized lesson plan format, template, then the structure for Islamization of the lesson plan itself. We're going to come to that. That's what we're doing in this session. Then, at the end of the year, meet, choose the best. Now we have the manual. That's our first step. Of course, the prerequisite for that is to have knowledge of the lesson plan Islamization program, and also to agree on a standardized template. Because that way it will be easy for us to work together. If everybody uses their own template, then it's confused. It's much more difficult to establish a standardized manual that can be used across all the schools. So at the end of the second year, that master plan, we could call it a state or city master plan. If it can go state, can go national, can go global, that much better. But just working with where you are right now, look at it as a state master plan. You run it for 1 year now. Everybody is working with the same plan. As you're teaching in your class, you're going to find some things work better than others. Even though, yes, you brought together theoretically what seemed to be the best, but maybe when you come to actually implementing it, you'll find there are some other things that are better. There are other things that can be added and improved on it. So, by the end of the second year, you meet again and you share all those things. You clean it up, and now you have that finalized lesson plan, master lesson plan, which everybody will use. And from that, technically speaking, this is what you will use as your guideline. This is the teacher's manual, really. The guideline for establishing your own textbooks. Creating your own textbooks based on your master lesson plans. Now, this might sound like a dream. Let me tell you that in Ghana, in Kumasi, Brother Abdul Nasir, who attended some of my workshops like 5 years ago in the UK, he took this idea went back to Kumasi and established a good school, good quality school, because he was concerned about this thing we talked about, that the Islamic school should not be substandard. He got that message crystal clear. He came back, he set up an impressive school and got the teachers, all the things that we talked about. He worked on that, trying to get qualified teachers and all this, and started working with the lesson plans, with the lesson plan template and concepts. Of course, since then, further things have developed, right? You're getting beyond what he had. But what he worked with, Islamization of the material, adding the moral principles in it, he did that 1 year, 2 year, 3rd year, he made his textbooks. And he has made textbooks from kindergarten to grade 6 for all the subjects. And alhamdulillah, an institution in Turkey, he sent it to them. They printed the textbooks for him, for all of his students, for free. You see Allah's barakah?
Yes.
You know? And this detail, this information, inshallah, we'll pass it on to you. You can write that institution in Turkey. They do sell books, but they do give to Islamic schools free also. So you can raise your case, make your presentation to them, they will send you all the books. Now the books may not be perfect. You know, they tried their best working with it, you know, because they're working long distance. The people in Turkey are making it, and you know, they're in Ghana. So some cultural Turkish things were coming in, they had to go back and make them remove them, and you know, there was a bit of a struggle there to get it in a format which was appropriate to Ghana, to West Africa, you know, because the Turkish company, they were used to, they're wearing Islamic materials all the time, but Turkish Islamic materials. So all the people look like Turks, right? You know, and again, this is the issue, you know, you want the textbook that people should look like the people of the area that the books are coming to. So they, alhamdulillah, work with it until they come up with something which I think is something very useful. Even if you don't necessarily apply the whole thing, you should have it in your library, use it as resource books, definitely. And they've made huge strides. So know that it is possible. In fact, it has been done. Should have been done a long, long time ago. I had started way back in the 90s promoting this idea from back then. And I had been in committees which were concerned with Islamic education, Islamized education. But these committees which were meeting mostly in the UK, we met in other places also. But in the meetings, everybody was trying to come up with a new Islamic studies curriculum. You know, and I said, listen, brothers, sisters, it's been done already. We have, by that time, we had about 3 or 4 different complete curriculums which had been published, printed, etc. But they were insisting to do a better one. You know, I became frustrated because I felt that what was there we could work with. You know, yeah, it's not perfect, but a good, you know, get good out of it. So I then struck out on my own to try to implement what I thought was needed. And that was the Islamization of the so-called secular subjects. So I took English, and I took a template, a series called the Gin Readers. I don't know if some of you know it from English or not. The Gin Readers, very popular out of England. I had seen it being used in Saudi Arabia in schools which I taught in. It was the most popular series. So I took that series and I said, I will make an Islamic version of this. So I got an early childhood expert, and we started with the books from kindergarten up to grade 3. This was a series of 56 books we produced in 3 years. The book that I'm going to show you here is the series was called Iman Reading Series, not named after my wife, but it was called the Iman Reading Series, English Reading Series, and it began with pre-kindergarten, as I said, it went up to grade 3. Each level had like 2 sets of 6 books on each level. So the total was the 56 books, including workbooks. So here is an example from level 3, book 4 for age 7 plus. And this is just one story from the book. Just to give an example, this is, it's called, that particular book was called Trips to Remember. It had different stories of different families who had gone on trips. You know? And in this story, Muhammad and Fatima, they go to the beach with their parents. And, you know, of course, you see the beach, then the images are Islamic type images. So they build sand castles, and somebody's playing with a frisbee, and the dog catching it, you throw it, the dog catches it, brings it back. The dog runs and knocks over the kids and knocks over the castle that they were making. So out of it, the kids start throwing stones at the dog because the dog broke their castles. Then the mother stops them, no, you know, they shouldn't do that, and explains to them that, you know, the dog is not at fault, you know, you shouldn't hurt another animal. So some moral principles coming here now, right? It was just a little story about going to the beach, playing at the beach, making your sand. But now the dog is introduced. And I particularly chose the dog because Muslims have a problem with dogs, you know? The non-Muslims, they see Muslims and dogs, they say, what is it with you Muslims and dogs? You know, when they bring a dog, Muslims would run in all directions. Because people have gone to extremes in dealing with the dog. You know, Islam has specified, yeah, if he eats out of the vessel you're eating from, yes, you clean it 7 times, 1 time with clean earth, etc. Yeah, but it's not everything. If he touches you, you know, you have to go clean your garment. He brushes against you, you know, you have to go make, your wudu is broken. All kinds of ideas people have. But in fact, none of this is the case. None of this is the case. If you touch a dog, it's not haram. It doesn't break your wudu to touch a dog. The Quran speaks about hunting dogs. Mukallabin. It speaks about hunting dogs. Meaning that it's Muslims hunted and are allowed to hunt with dogs. And when you hunt with a dog, what does that mean? You send the dog out, catches a rabbit, and he brings it back to you. Now, how does he bring it back? He brings it back in his hands, the front paws, he runs on his legs and brings it to you. No, he's taking it in his mouth. He's taking it in his mouth. And what do you have to do now? Take it and wash it 7 times? No. You cook the rabbit and you eat it. So we have gone to extremes, you know, made our lives very difficult because of misunderstandings, ignorance concerning the dog. So this is why I chose the dog. Could have been something else. Anyway, the point is, they are told about being kind to animals and not to harm animals. Then they sit and they eat a meal, beginning with Bismillah. And they discuss about something about the why they're eating, for example, beef, you know, and it's an animal. They told us not to harm throwing stones, now you're eating. These are the kinds of questions that the children will respond to, will come up with, and then it's explained to them that Allah said it's okay for us to eat the animals because they were made halal for us. Okay? And then they finished the extra food they had, they gave it to the dog ate, and so on and so on. So they were kind in the end towards the dog, and they built an even bigger castle than they had before. Simple story. But many messages, moral messages, Islamic messages sent through the story. So if the children, they learn the principles of English, then they have to read, they have to have reading books to build on those, what in Arabic we call nusus. The books you learn Nahu, and then you have nusus books in which you utilize the skills grammar skills you learn in those books. So an example of what we can do, what we can produce from scratch. We can produce alternative texts, and obviously if we did this in science, in maths, in everything else, then this is where the message is coming. That we're giving Islamic messages in every textbook that these children read. This is going to have a huge impact on the students. Sorry, pressed the wrong thing here. Get it back to it. I meant to press escape when I press that. Let's go to the Okay, that was actually the tail end of the previous session. The third session we're entering now, the principles of lesson plan Islamization. I have identified 5 basic principles. If these principles are implemented, you have an Islamized lesson plan, guaranteed. And it's not necessary to implement every one of the 5. 4 out of the 5, 3 out of the 5 may be all that you're actually able to do because of the material that you're dealing with. 1 of the 5 you cannot do without. But the other 4 are you try to do as much of them as possible. So the idea is to incorporate these principles in each and every lesson plan. The first principle relates to the classroom environment. As they say, one picture is equal to 1,000 words. In our classrooms, we are putting images, pictures in the classroom. So we need to be very specific about these images. Right now, we just find a nice picture, we stick it on the wall. A poster, nice saying, stick it on the wall. We just stick things on the wall. But we have to consider the walls of our classrooms like a textbook. That we are teaching something from every image that we put on the wall. So we choose these images carefully. We search for the best images which will convey what we want to convey. And each image that we put up there should convey an Islamic message. That's the point. That when the children look around, because that's what they do, They look around the classroom, their eye falls on something, there's an Islamic message coming, which they can understand. It should be not a beautiful saying in language which is above their level. They can't read it, they can't understand it. It might be visually attractive to us, but we have to think about them. So we make sure that every image, you have to do a picture of the body. We're going to do a class on body parts, the body. We get pictures, they're standard pictures you can get from bookstores, and where they have a little boy standing there naked. Or he has just his underwear on. I've gone into Muslim class, I've seen this. It's just his underwear, it's a little small underwear. Thighs are exposed. But it's just a kid. A message is being sent. A message is being sent. Because we are supposed to teach the kids that between the navel and the knee, as a boy, should be covered, shouldn't be exposed. That's your aura. So that picture on the wall is violating Islamic principles. You are teaching the children that it's okay to show your thighs. But it's only a 5-year-old kid. It's not the point. These things we need to teach the children from they're young. We have a tendency to dress our children, especially the girls and that. We'll dress them in very short dresses and tight leotard spandex. But they're only little kids. Don't they look cute? You are sending bad messages. The girls grow up wearing tight clothes. When they reach puberty, you want them to wear loose clothes. They don't like it. Doesn't feel comfortable. They're used to wearing tight clothes. Modern fashion is tight clothes. Western fashion is expose the aura. Islamic fashion is cover the aura. Opposite. So it's better. I'm not saying you have to cover the kid up in a jilbab and niqab and she's only 3 years old. Okay, I'm not saying we don't go to one extreme or the other. We try to find the balance. Find that balanced point. But she wears whatever little garments you put on her, they're loose. So she's comfortable in loose clothing. So when she gets to be 13, time of puberty 14, she's used to wearing loose clothing. If somebody even suggested to her to wear tight, she not feel comfortable. It feels uncomfortable. She's not going to like it. That's what you want. So these are messages we send. So that is your classroom environment. Every class that you teach, you put up some posters which are relative to the class that you're teaching. There are some standard posters that you have around the classroom. Maybe you change them because you're working on a thematic approach. Every month you have a different theme which is shared by the school, all the classes, so you change those every month. But think about it, that the walls of your classroom are like a book. You have a purpose for every page. You have a message in every line. So this is your classroom environment. That is the visual environment. Then of course, the oral environment, most of you I'm sure are already doing it. When you go into the classroom, you greet the students, Assalamu alaikum, not hi. How are you all today? No, it's Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. This is a dua. It has much more value than high. You say high, what does high mean? High and low and what? What is this high? So we give them salam alaikum and we let them know why salam alaikum is better than high. So it's not just that you don't use high, you also have to let them know why we say salam alaikum and what salam alaikum means, as much as you can get to their little minds. So they can appreciate salam alaikum. And other phrases, you know, when things happen in the classroom, you know, something strange or something unusual, you say subhanallah. You know? In other contexts, people say geez. What do you mean geez? Geez is a short for Jesus. That's what it is, geez. It's a short for Jesus. Because that's what in the West people will also say. You know, some are more careful, they don't like to use it that often. They'll say Jesus. That we say subhanallah, they say Jesus. Jesus Christ. So, subhanallah. Alhamdulillah. These are well-known phrases. We just try to use them where it is appropriate, get them to use it also where it's appropriate, let them know what it means to the degree that we're able. Every day somebody is going to sneeze. In every class, every day, somebody is going to sneeze. So tell them, Alhamdulillah, Yarhamukallah, Yahdikumullah, wa yuslih balakum. The physical environment, favoring the right. We know this is from the Sunnah. To favor the right. Who's organized this sound thing? I think it's, where is the person who did the set up the sound? It's squeaking though. Well, I think it's going red. The battery is going. Okay, so the physical environment, favoring the right. The kids are coming in the classroom, let the one on the right go in first. Right? Let the one on the right go in first. Also, depending on the age, if they ask you why favor the right? What do we tell them? Huh? It was the practice of the Prophet ﷺ to favor the right. This was his way. If the kids are older and they now want to know more about this favoring the right, then it is possible for us to give them additional information about the right. On the Day of Judgment, those who are going to paradise receive their books in which hand? The right hand. So it's a reminder about the Day of Judgment. Be focused. The visual we spoke about already, and the objective of all of this is to create an Islamic cultural atmosphere in the classroom itself. We should do the same in our homes. You know, as we do it in the classroom, we should do the same in our homes. So in terms of your resources, because you're going to need help in getting material, the Islamic art teacher should be a good help. In some schools, they don't even have an Islamic art teacher, because the general attitude towards art is that it's haram. But in fact, there is a lot of leeway and room in education, especially for children, in the use of art. And in any case, if you're not using figures, then art is wide open. And it is a part of Islamic culture to have developed things and designed things in artistic ways. It is perfectly legitimate. And children who have artistic leanings, etc., we should favor it and direct it in a good direction, rather than saying haram. We should know and stay within the bounds. If Prophet Muhammad ﷺ allowed Aisha to have dolls, to have a horse with wings, he allowed Aisha to do so. Who are you to stop your children from having dolls or images, etc., using them? Unless you think you're better than Rasulullah ﷺ. So, where there is leeway, the Prophet ﷺ has himself allowed this, then we should not restrict and make life difficult for our children. Because part of making learning fun, enjoying the learning, it's going to involve for them, to a large degree, some form of art, images, pictures, stories, etc. And the other major resource we call Sheikh Google. Alhamdulillah, it makes life a lot easier than in the days 20 years ago. There was no Google. Going to find images was a huge challenge. The second principle is that of Islamic historical relevance. The idea here is to connect the students with history, with Islamic history. What is being taught in the educational circles globally is Western history. So the students will graduate from schools, they will know Einstein, they will know Newton, they will know all those Western names. But if you mention Al-Biruni, you say, what? Is that some kind of noodles or spaghetti? Biruni, spaghetti sounds good. Al-Haythami. Haythami? Is that a drink? Can you drink on the market? They have no idea who are these people. And these were masters in their fields, in science, in producing. A lot of what is being done in Western science today is built on what they developed. So they should know these names. I'm not saying don't know Newton or don't know Einstein, but know Biruni and Haythami, Ibn Sina, know these people. So this is important because then the young person feels that Muslims have contributed. You cannot go to any field without finding that Muslims have contributed in this field, one way or another. Even the computer. Even the computer, there are Muslim scientists, mathematicians, who laid the foundation for the modern day computer. Most people don't know that, have no idea. So, it's important. This is Hassan ibn al-Haytham. He is known in the West as Al-Hazan. From Al-Hassan, it became Al-Hazan. He was a pioneering scientific thinker who made important contributions to the understanding of vision, optics, and light. So you're teaching a class optics, they should know Al-Hasan ibn al-Haytham. You can see the picture in the middle, it's all written in Arabic, he's describing the eyes. Those are two eyes there and a nose in the middle, if you couldn't figure it out. Now, the idea, as I said, is to connect the students with their cultural past and to let them realize that Muslims contributed in all fields of learning. Resources. There's a book. There are pictures of it right there. It's called 1001 Muslim Inventions. You can download that book from kalamullah.com. This was produced in the UK for a big exhibition which was made there back in around 2010. They made a big exhibition there. And they gathered all of these major contributions made by Muslim scientists, which most people have no idea about. And they made a kids version. So you have there 1001 inventions and awesome facts. That's for kids. For the lower kids, the other one you can use for the secondary school, etc. And even you can draw from it and use it for the primary schools. So we have resources. If I told you this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would say, how? Where? Now it's at the fingertips. You can have it by just clicking on the internet, kalamullah.com, 1001 Inventions, and there's the book. Download the whole book. This book, hard copy, should be in the library, every Muslim school library. Multiple copies, that all the teachers can go and take from it and benefit. Of course, the other source, the other source of material, I mean, can be through Google. You can do further research to expand if you're doing other topics which are more complex, you know. Simple facts, for example, like the inventor of the fuel for the rocket ships, which took the first man to the moon, was an Egyptian scientist. He is the one who developed it. They brought him to America, gave him American citizenship, but he was a Muslim scientist from Egypt. And the top heart surgeon in the world, known Majdi there in London, Muslim physician. So, like this, even in modern times, there are many who have contributed and are outstanding in their various fields. We can collect that kind of information and utilize it in our classes. The third principle is a relevant Quranic verse. For example, you're doing a class on water, Maraj al-Bahrayni al-Taqiyan. He released the two seas so that they meet with a barrier between them which neither can cross. Surah Rahman, there is that barrier, you can see it. Or you're dealing with the body, you have the verse about Allah creating and proportioning the fingertips of every human being. So no two fingerprints are the same. But when we're going to use the Quranic verses, we should use the appropriate verse. It's not just any verse. What has become a standard practice in Muslim events, gatherings, etc., we have somebody read Quran to start. He will pick a verse and he reads so many verses, whatever. People are sitting there and nobody understands what he's read. The translation is not even given. And even if the translation was given, it has no relevance to the gathering. What have we done to the Quran? What have we done to the Quran? For most people, they are only enjoying his recitation. If he is melodious, it sounds nice, mashallah. So it's like, you know, songs. You like this singer or that singer, the other, Michael Jackson, whatever. We have a Quranic version. This is not what the Quran is for. The Quran is a book of guidance. Hudan lil muttaqin, it's guidance. How can you get the guidance if you don't know what it's saying? So at least in your gatherings, the minimum is that everything you read from the Quran should be translated so people understand what Allah is saying. Because the purpose of the reading should be to share something of the words of Allah with the people. But most importantly, what you're sharing should be relevant. You have a title of the lecture, you have a theme of the event, then the Quranic verse you can find touching on that same topic. So get a verse which is, it makes some effort. You know, there are easy ways, come